Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 20th episode of Battles and Voices. I'm Latika, and I'm the founder and host.
And I'm Camden, and I'm the co-host. Together, we serve on the executive team of Vitals and Voices.
Battles and Voices brings together students, mentors, and professionals involved in the healthcare field to share their journey and stories and to shine a light on the human side of healthcare.
Please welcome our guest, Krystal.
Krystal, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so excited to have you on Battles and Voices. To start off, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
Sure. Thank you for having me on as well. I'm so excited to be here and um, talk about these vital topics in healthcare. It's very much needed to talk about. And a little brief introduction about me. I'm a public health professional passionate about meeting patients where they are at in a culturally competent and trauma-informed manner. I'm currently a full-time ophthalmology technician getting ready to apply for an ABSN and eventually going the NP route. Yeah, so happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming on again, and that is so beautiful to hear. And you mentioned that you're an ophthalmology technician, preparing to apply for an ABSN program, what initially inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare, and eventually the nurse practitioner route.
Yeah, so to be honest, I really didn't, don't know if I would say I knew and was inspired by, there wasn't like an aha moment where I was inspired and realized I wanted to go to medicine. It was more so like kind of a windy journey where I was on the outskirts of medicine. I studied public health and communication, and then um, eventually I wound up going into medicine. And I think that's because I was initially intimidated by medicine. Just the whole field seemed kind of very tiring and cutthroat, and so I was afraid of failure and even dipping my toes in there. Um, but eventually I ended up with a job at for my grad program, and I had my own office and double computer monitors, and I was getting paid and everything, but I realized the office life wasn't for me, and so I went back to school and kind of went into medicine instead, so I could have more one-on-one conversations with people and not just sitting at my desk. Mhm.
That's wonderful. So you share that you were once intimidated by medicine, but found your way into public health. So how did that transition shape your perspective on what it really means to work in healthcare?
Yeah, so I'm actually really grateful that I started in public health because it taught me a lot about the system, the healthcare system, and how its weaknesses and how it can be improved upon. It also gave me the mindset of looking at health as a way to, the best way to cure is basically to prevent. It's better, prevention is better than treatment in most cases when you can help it. And so I really enjoy learning about ways to motivate people and interview them to kind of see where they're at in their health goals and meet them where they're at in terms of prevention and promotion of wellness and keeping up what is helping them and avoiding or lowering the barriers to access for them. Yeah, I also learned a lot about trauma informed care. And so I think a lot of the times in medicine, people might just look at the patient and their symptoms and try to treat them, but they sometimes forget about the overall picture of all the different aspects of their life that are possibly contributing to them not following their medication regimen, for example. Like someone might not be non they might not be non-compliant out of choice, but it might just be that they're forgetting or something like that. So I use that lens to kind of be more understanding and try to approach healthcare appointments more as from a problem solving standpoint.
Well, that's amazing to hear. And it sounds like your time working for UFACE, oh my gosh, UFACE. HEC helped you realize what kind of environment you thrive in? And what did that experience teach you about yourself and your own goals?
Yeah, so working at UFA Heck, it taught me that I am really a team player. Like I really enjoy talking with other people, and I like to have set goals and time slots. Yeah, so I learned that I enjoy working with people and not being isolated. And so I guess that kind of made me go the other way and be interacting with people all the time. Because in medicine, I feel like that's all we do. Yeah.
Wonderful. So you've been open about experiencing burnout and seeing others go through it as well. What do you think needs to change in healthcare education to better support students and professionals' mental health?
Yeah, so definitely burnout is a big thing in the medical field. I feel like even before you become a professional, like as a student, even as a pre-healthcare student, um, I think it's definitely an issue, not only because there's extreme academic pressure, but also because there's a toxic mental state that is kind of encouraged by people or the field, in my opinion, to kind of just get through it and just keep going and not really listen to your body and your mental health, because at the end of the day, you're working towards the goal, um, and it's about sacrifice. And so, I think what might help with this is kind of focusing more on the mental health picture and maybe going at a more holistic admissions process instead of just solely focusing on the exam scores or the GPA grades, because a provider is more than their numbers, and what they have to offer is more than that. Um, and it just seems like a barrier that could potentially make it inequitable for the people who are coming in, because a lot of standardized exam scores, it's not necessarily how smart you are or hardworking you are, it's how well you can take a test. And the people who can take the tests best are usually the ones who have access to the resources, where whether it's buying a tutor or purchasing study prep materials. And so I definitely would love to see the field moving more towards holistic um, type admissions and taking also account into effort of how hard the provider is working.
I totally agree with that, especially as a senior myself. Senioritis has been definitely hitting um,
Yeah.
after all these years of working hard just to get into like a college.
Yeah.
So I can definitely agree on that, and hopefully I can see some change in the
Yeah.
future as well.
Yeah, and I think the burnout, I feel like it hits people um who are like, in terms of equity, I feel like it hits people who have less privilege than those who are more privileged, because you're the ones with less privilege basically have to work their entire life, potentially to support themselves and their families. And so, it's a lot of work not only to get into school, but also to navigate all those challenges in your day-to-day life. And I definitely can relate to that too. Like I feel like I've been working my entire life towards this goal that I didn't even know I wanted until a couple of years ago. Um, but yeah, it takes a toll, and hopefully admission admissions can kind of take that into consideration when trying to foster the next generation.
I totally agree with that. So your story highlights a lot of resilience. What helps you stay motivated when things get difficult, especially as you balance work, applications, and your own personal life?
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, I want to make a difference. Um, Even if it's not a huge difference, I want to be able to connect with people and see them where they're at, help talk to them one on one and see what I can do. Um, because I really do believe in the importance of the little things really matter. And so, even if it's a small conversation and a daily interaction, a little interaction with someone, maybe they never had been listened to like that, or maybe no one had considered um, that the reason they weren't showing up to their appointments was because they didn't have access to transportation. So I really want to bridge that gap in terms of equity when it comes to healthcare and just being very considerate about all patients, even if they might not be the quote unquote easiest. I just want to make sure that everyone gets taken care of.
I love that. So we also love that you've turned your own experiences into a way to help others. Can you tell us more about your platform, the Pivot PA.NP, and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so yeah, it's been a long journey. I like I said, I originally was majoring in public health and communication. And so medicine was never really on my radar. Like I never really was necessarily pre-med or pre-PA or anything. But eventually I found my way there. And um, I realized how much, or I felt like it was very glamorized on Instagram and social media. And so I kind of wanted to be a little bit more realistic and kind of vulnerable in the sense that in a way that help gives students tips and people who are trying to get their encouragement as well. Um, so that's kind of what inspired me to start it. And I also wanted to branch out to NPs because I feel like APPs in general aren't really appreciated as much as they should be. And I wanted to just bring some awareness to the jobs and kind of help guide and mentor students who aren't sure which route they want to go. Because I wish I had someone who had mentored me and kind of told me what was what were the pros and cons of each and kind of guided me a little bit more earlier on.
That's amazing to hear. And you mentioned wanting to make the journey to becoming an APP more equitable. And what barriers do you think first generations or unrepresented students may face? And how do you hope to help bridge these gaps?
Yeah, so definitely a part of it is mentorship. I'm really big on mentoring, answering questions and helping people in any way that I can, especially if they don't have any connections in the field or if they don't know anything about it. I'm happy to do that. I also in the future would love to fund like a micro grant or a scholarship of some type to kind of help offset the burden of, applications because they're very expensive and that's one of the barriers to getting a lot more diverse applicants, in my opinion. And so I think at the end of the day, the root healthcare has a lot of issues, but I think one of the main issues is we're basically barring people from entry into the profession that would care for their communities. And those communities are the ones that need the care the most and they need that person who can relate to the culture or they can relate to the issues. Um, and so I would really love to try to help connect people, encourage people, and mentor them.
I love that. And I think it's really great what you're trying to do in the community as well.
Yeah.
So, so you've also talked about wanting to eventually own your own practice. What kind of impact would you hope to make as a future NP and a potential business owner?
Yeah. So owning my own practice, I would really hope to Um, I would hope to have patients feel like they're human. Like I feel like that's also a big thing in medicine is a lot of the times people will feel like they're talking to robots or they're just kind of being funneled through the system. And so I'd really want to make it a point to connect with people and give them information, like give them, empower them to have their best health, even on their own, even in between appointments, like potentially having workshops and stuff like that to empower people so that they have the information and resources they need to succeed in their health and they're not just relying on our expertise. I think I would also be really big on encouraging people to advocate for their health and kind of be active in their health. So if they have something going on, I would encourage them to log what's going on and kind of try to give us as much information as they can, um, and just be an active participant. Because at the end of the day, we can tell a patient what they need to do as much as we want, but if they're not ready to, or if they're not sure how to go about doing that change, then it's not going to happen. And so I'm really about um, team play, being on a team together. Mhm.
That's amazing to hear. And you mentioned earlier about wanting to be a potential mentor to people. In your life, was there anyone who is maybe a mentor or even a family member who played a major role in guiding your path in healthcare?
Oh yeah, I've had so many mentors. It's I wouldn't be here if I didn't have, these mentorships. And I think that's part of the reason why I want to give back is because I it's a cycle, right? Like when you give back to people, they give back to others. And so I feel like it's a ripple effect and I want to continue that ripple effect. Um, Someone who comes to mind is the first PA that I worked under. My first job was an MA scribe in dermatology, and I don't know, she was just so cool and so willing to teach and very, very patient with me because I was very nervous to be doing anything in medicine. I was always worried that I would hurt the patient or something. And so I was very, very worried. And she would always reassure me, and she really, really encouraged me to think like a provider. Like she would always, even though I was just the MA scribe, she would encourage me to be like, oh, like, what do you think it is? Or, how do you think we would treat this and stuff like that. And so she encouraged me even from the very beginning to think critically and think independently. And so I wouldn't be here without her. And there's definitely many other mentors as well, but she's just one that comes to mind first.
I really love that. And finally, what advice would you give to students or young healthcare professionals who feel intimidated by the medical field or uncertain about where they would fit in?
Yeah, for sure. I think what's really important if you're intimidated or unsure about it is to shadow people, talk to people. What I would start with, and this is kind of what I did, I would start with having conversations with people. So whether you find them on social media or LinkedIn, um, or their email on their company website, I would reach out to them, let them know that you're a student and interested in, kind of give a little introduction about yourself, tell them what you're interested in, and ask if they're willing to chat with you. Um, and then after that, I would see if you're interested in what they're doing, you could take it a step further and ask them if they know of any shadowing opportunities or if they'd be willing to let you go into work with them one day. Um, yeah, and a lot of research, I think, whether it's social media, talking to people. Um, but I find the most helpful is talking to people one on one because then you can kind of get a feel for what it's really like. Because social media sometimes can be a little misleading and glamorized, and so it's good to talk to a variety of people and kind of see what it's like in real life.
I can totally agree with that. As somebody who's also job shadowed before and found my way to the PA profession, through that, I've really enjoyed getting to meet various fields and professions as well. And it's a really good opportunity to get a hold of if you're able to.
Exactly. And the thing about I think the great thing about now in technology is that you're able to reach out, make these connections. You're able to meet people from all over. And so definitely use that to your advantage. And it's also free. So, granted you do need access to internet and a computer to have these connections. So I'm definitely still aware of that privilege. But for the most part, it's a free and easy way to kind of figure out your path. Another thing too, I would say is to get connected with the pre health clubs. So whichever clubs you're interested in, get connected with those clubs because they can help you make connections as well and kind of just get you information and have other people working alongside with you that you can kind of relate to and struggle with, which is it's a trauma bonding part in a way. Um, yeah, so that would definitely be super helpful as well.
Well, Crystal, that is some great advice. We just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story and all the incredible insight you've given us and our listeners today.
Sure, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
It was so fun. And your journey really shows that there's no single path into making a impact in medicine, and that is what is so inspiring.
And to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us on this episode of Battles and Voices. Your support and positivity means so much to us.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more episodes.
We'll see you next time.